Welcome to this Wednesday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest, and happy to have you with us here. Experiencing, we've said this before. If you could book the weatherman's action, you would be a rich man today. I mean, how often are they accurate? They tell you, especially we live in Florida here. Troy West, who's scheduled to join us on the program today, although that's become somewhat suspect, as he has just experienced as he wakes up 6:30 in the morning out there in the Pacific Northwest. He could go salmon fishing or whatever, but instead he's experiencing a power outage, and we're going to try and bring him on, at least from an audio standpoint, here on the program and get his selections that are coming up as we can. I, I mean, we love the smell of point spreads in the morning, and these games are calling our name, are they not? The college football playoff games, after all the conversation about it and the cockamamie system they use to put the platform in place and establish the brackets, and people are screaming, Penn State, they got all the favoritism that they possibly could from these guys. They just want them to win the championship. I don't think, are there people out there in our audience that think Penn State's going to actually win it all? They get somewhat of an easy ride, according to many. I don't know in your experience talking to people about the games, but you're sitting in a bar somewhere. Almost everybody seems to feel like, geez, what an easy draw. They're favored by 8.5 over SMU. And then waiting in the wings in the second round with a seed out of the first round, a bye in the first round, is Boise State. Not exactly the most imposing of opponents. So looks like they have somewhat of a clear path to get themselves into a championship position. Penn State, choking bunch of fucking dogs that they are. My God, James Franklin, what is his record in these spots? 1-12, something along those lines. So I'm inclined to go against them. In fact, my original instinct here is to take the points in all four games and figure that I have a shot to at least win 3 of them. I don't know about parlaying the 4 dogs in this one because somewhere the chalk is likely to prevail. But could you go 3-1? That'll be interesting speculation. We'll try to get into that with Troy West. But as I was saying, if you could book the weatherman's action, it's supposed to be sunny and mild here in South Florida today. I originate from Miami, as we've mentioned many times, actually Fort Lauderdale. And literally a monsoon has struck my place. Lightning strikes, all kinds of crazy shit going on. I just looked outside of this big picture window, and I thought I saw George Clooney on the Andrea Gale going, I always get the fish. Big mystery about that movie, by the way, The Perfect Storm, which was one of my favorite movies. I've probably seen it 20 times. I don't know if it's worth watching 20 times, but it amazes me that they were able to go down below deck while experiencing 100-foot seas with rogue waves, boats falling apart, everything is crashing in and caving in, and somehow they're able to eat that lasagna while they're below deck and hold that down. Now, that in and of itself might be the single most amazing phenomenon I've ever seen in any film. All right, if you're going to be betting, and we're going to try and connect here with Troy West, I may not get to see his handsome face here on the show, but I believe it will work from an audio standpoint. And if you're wagering, get out there and step it up, people. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action, the ability to watch the game and send it in while the game's in play, and with the largest selection of odds on virtually everything. Football, NBA. You could have bet on the NBA Cup last night. Maybe made a score there as Milwaukee was a 4.5-point underdog. College basketball, which a lot of interesting matchups were taking place last night. I don't know if you guys were involved. The NHL, UFC, boxing. You can do it all at BetOnline. Head to BetOnline today. And don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. That's all in capital letters. BLEAV for your welcome bonus on your very first deposit. BetOnline. The game starts here. All right, we're going to attempt here to connect with Troy West, and we wanted to get his opinion on the college football playoff games and, of course, many other things that are happening in the world of gambling. We're getting something. There he is. Can you at least hear us, Troy West?
We can hear you, Defo. How you doing?
Doing all right. Sorry we can't see you. So you had a power outage, and it must be, I mean, we couldn't be any more geographically diametrically opposite. You're way up there in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm down here in almost the southern and southeasternmost point that you could be in the United States. and I am getting pounded here with a storm that likes of which you could only expect in the hurricane season. And here we are in the middle of winter, and this just popped up out of nowhere. And of course, it came after I saw the early morning weather report here that said, "Oh, going to be a beautiful day here in South Florida." And I did know a degenerate weatherman. He was working here at a local station, and in between the 6 and 11 news, you would find him at the local dog track, the Biscayne Kennel Club, just sending it in on grade B dogs. And I had great respect for the man because I'm figuring, okay, this guy's a degenerate gambler, so he's likely to take a chance in making some of his weather predictions that go against the grain of what he's seeing just on the various weather monitoring services that he has. And he tended to be much more accurate than the other guys that use more conventional means. But wow, well, we're getting pounded. Now, is it that same kind of thing? What was that rogue storm that you had going? Uh,
Yeah, yeah. The apocalypse was came and went, and now we've got round two of it. And this one, like you said, Defo, the weather reporters never saw it coming. So
Never. Yeah.
never saw it coming. No sign of life. And yeah, I mean there is outages everywhere. Once again, I felt like I was in Florida. Felt like a tsunami was coming through
I
here.
mean, I just saw my beach chairs go flying by the window there. I was going to go out
Yeah.
there and take in a little sunshine after the show today. All right, how you feeling about things? I mean, you no doubt get a lot of input from the people, and you have your betting service, Troy Wins. Anytime you could go 20-1, as you were saying on a previous show, and they'd be calling you a scumbag. The four guys that happened to end up on the losing side of that one game that you didn't prevail in. What kind of sense are you getting about this college football playoffs? Not just from the people that you work with that do all of the research and investigating into what's happening. It's inside information is always a key, but as to who's playing, who's not. But what are you sensing from the fans out there? Is this a cakewalk for Oregon? No matter what people think about these original games, it seems like the consensus keeps coming up with the chalk and assuming that Oregon is the most likely to win this thing, even at plus 375.
Yeah, I don't know if I see it. I actually think Oregon, we talked about last week. Oregon actually, of all the teams, got screwed. Without a doubt. I mean, if they win this, they're going to get the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee, and that will be played on a neutral field. And let's be honest, Ohio State almost had Oregon beat at Oregon earlier in the year, and Tennessee is no slouch. I do think Ohio State probably wins that game, and we'll get the rematch. And then if they win that game, they're going to get Texas, and I'm not even so sure on a neutral field that they'll be favored against Texas. I think that would be around a pick'em game. Um, if I'm looking at the look ahead lines. So, and then obviously if they get past that game, it could be Georgia, it could be Notre Dame. Georgia with Carson Beck out, I don't see them being a true contender. But you just never know. Kirby Smart's a heck of a football coach, but I definitely don't think it's an easy path. I think I've got Texas winning it all. But I think Texas, Notre Dame, Oregon. There's 3, 4 teams. Ohio State. Those are all teams that can win this thing.
I wasn't extremely impressed with Texas last couple of ball games. The fact that they staggered around a little bit offensively and didn't put a lot of points on the board. What's weird about this to me, and I offered up a little proposition before you came on, and I was talking about this with a bunch of guys earlier this morning on another show. That if you took the points in all of these games, these are big spreads for opening round postseason games. I know we expanded the field, and maybe there were only a handful of really good teams in college football this year, upper echelon, elite type of teams. But there's some big discrepancies with these lines in terms of what the handicappers and what the line makers are seeing. You're getting 7.5 with Indiana. You're getting, or somewhere in that neighborhood, 8.5 with SMU. You're getting a ton of points here with Clemson. I don't know if divine intervention comes into play. Do you factor that in with Dabo, or whether or not God has a betting interest in the game? And then you're getting big points also with Tennessee, 7.5 in the Ohio State game. Would you have any inclination whatsoever, Troy West, to just take the points in all games and hope to have a 3-1 Friday and Saturday?
I don't argue that. I really don't. The only favorite that I'm heavy on it would be Texas. And again, that's a lot of points, but I just think Texas, Clemson to me is a team that probably should have got into the playoff. A lot of luck went their way. They had to win the ACC championship to get in. This is a team that lost 3 games and wasn't very impressive throughout the course of the year. But I'm with you. SMU looks very juicy. I mean, that's a really good football team. I asked a buddy the other day. I go, if SMU was at home in that game, I think they'd be favored, if not maybe a pick 'em or 1 point dog. So you're giving Penn State 8.5 points for being at home. Um, and same with that Tennessee Ohio State game. If Tennessee was at home, I think they'd probably be favored by a point or two. So, they're giving you dang near a touchdown for home field advantage. So I'm with you, Defo. I like a lot of these underdogs.
All right, how did you fare on the pro card last week? There were a couple of games that stood out to me early on, and we managed to be right about the Cincinnati Bengals game because they were only laying like 5 and a hook in their contest. I'm inclined to bet against the Titans in virtually every game they play. They're the worst team in the AFC against the spread this year. I think now might be what 4-10 against the point spread this year. So if you're hammering them and going against them in every game, you're up 6 units, which isn't a bad proposition. The Panthers appear to have slipped back, and maybe the Cardinals have found a little bit of a spark. Cardinals laying 4 on the road. How'd you make out last week? And is there anything that just literally leaps out at you and you say, "My God, I found the woman of my dreams here"? Is there that type of ball game on the schedule coming up this week?
I was wrong last week with the Dallas Cowboys. I really thought that they would lay an egg against Carolina, being on the short week and having the tough loss against Cincy on Monday night. And I thought Carolina, the way they'd been playing, I thought they would bounce back at home and get a big win. And they just looked like the Carolina of old. They looked absolutely terrible. This week, one of the games, and I'll just give it to you officially right now, I've had circled is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Sunday night football -4 against the Cowboys. Boy, this Buccaneers team, they're hot right now. Winners of 4 straight in the driver's seat in the division. They go into Dallas. Again, I get it. Dallas playing a little bit better, but man, Baker Mayfield's got this team playing really good football. They just put up 40 points on a really good Chargers team, in my opinion. I don't think that's enough points. I still think the Cowboys are fraudulent. I like the Buccaneers a lot in that one.
Yes, I mean, got a lot more comfortable after, I guess, into the second half of that ball game. You were sitting there schwitzing a little bit, thinking the Buccaneers were going to blow a gasket, but then they really powered up and came on and demolished the point spread in that one. Speaking of the Chargers, they're kicking off the NFL week, and they're laying 3 points, at least according to the line I have here, which might be somewhat ancient, against a Broncos team that has overachieved, you would say, versus expectations. It wasn't like they were about to be in the preface to Charles Dickens' book, but by that name. But the Broncos with Bo Nix, somewhat of a surprise. If you look at them, Broncos with a one-game better record than the Chargers. They do have to go on the road in this one, and yet it seems like the differential in terms of points scored and points given up. Uh, Big time favoritism for the Broncos in that category. So, have you looked at that ball game at all? Because I'm very curious. That the Chargers don't usually put up a ton of points. It seems like the Broncos will be in there with a shot, even though they're on the road.
I had this one circled with the Chargers. I think this is a little bit of an overreaction to what happened last week with the Chargers getting blasted by the Bucks. This is a must win for the Chargers. They're at home. I'm with you. Denver's been a pleasant surprise this year. Sean Payton could arguably be the coach of the year. Bo Nix is looking to potentially be the rookie of the year. These guys they're playing great football, but they're on the road. Must win game for the Chargers at home. I like Herbert. He's the better quarterback. Harbaugh, he'll have these guys ready. They'll bounce back in this game. It's going to be close, but I like the Chargers 28-24.
Oh yeah, okay. Is that one of your plays or?
Not official. Not
Okay.
official. That won't be one of the three. That won't be one of the three. But I do like the Chargers in that football game.
Do the Chargers have any fans? I mean, you talk about
No
a
kidding.
nomadic team. I mean, they play at home, and every time they do the pan shot of the crowd, it's the other team, whether it's the Packers or the Vikings or whoever comes to town. They seem to dominate the seats in the arena. It doesn't seem like anybody roots for the Chargers. I don't think they've had any fans since Gene Klein checked out many years ago, and they moved to Los Angeles. Does that not strike you as a very unusual circumstance in the NFL?
Very. No, I couldn't agree more. The Rams have a little bit of a following, but between them and the Rams, it's unbelievable. The amount of visitors that go into these football games. I don't know how they do it, and I hope it changes with them starting to win. But boy, it's ugly. It's really ugly.
And the Rams had a solid foundation in L.A. I lived out in Los Angeles in the mid '70s till the early '80s, and the Rams weren't exactly the Dodgers in terms of recognition. And during that time was the evolution of the Showtime Lakers. The Kings had Marcel Dion. They started to catch a little bit of attention, but the Rams were always a very solid entity in terms of fan base. Then the Chargers moved to town. I know when the Raiders came there, they had their following that came and watched them even at the LA Coliseum. It wasn't quite to the extent of the Rams in terms of attendance, but every time I watch a Charger game, I'm astonished. You're asking yourself, "Oh fuck, I did the wrong thing." I bet this team as if it was on the road, and then you realize, oh no, that they are on the road, because every shout of the crowd has people screaming and yelling for the other team. We get a little bit of a similar circumstance. This would never happen in Seattle, I would imagine, where you guys have that terrific 12th man tradition. But if a New York team comes to play the Miami Dolphins, and one time I was making some announcements on the field, so I'm walking through some tunnels and elevators, trying to get to a seat where I was going to watch the game, and the building starts shaking and the crowd erupts. And I thought, oh shit, I missed like a Dolphin score, and sure enough, it was the New York Giants were up 7-0, and all of the fans in the building were rooting for the New York teams, having just gotten down here from New York and made that move at that period of time. All right, let's get into your other picks here. So you're giving us the Buccaneers over Dallas, and that's going to be one of Troy West plays on Bury Your Bookie, laying 4 points right now against the Dallas Cowboys team that, as you said, is showing the so-called signs of life, but isn't necessarily all that great. What else do you have for us this week that we can make some money on?
Yeah, we'll go to the bowl games, and I do. We talked about it earlier, but I really like this SMU team. They're getting 8.5 points against Penn State. That place is obviously going to be rocking. I get it. SMU not that impressive throughout the year in terms of quality wins, but they're going to keep this game close. This is going to be a good football game. I expect Penn State to win, but I'll take 8.5 points all day long in that game. I expect that score to be around a 31-27 type of football game. I'll take 8.5. And then I am going to go with Texas. Texas minus 11 at home against Clemson. I still think Texas is one of the best teams in the country. They're at home. That place will be rocking. They're coming off the tough loss in the SEC championship game to Georgia, where, like you said, where they didn't score much. But they had a lot of red zone, debacles in that game. Quinn Ewers didn't play great. They had some drop passes and still could have won that game. I like Texas in a big way, 38-17. Give me the Longhorns. And
All
then,
right.
like we talked about,
Yeah.
last but not least, Tampa Bay. -4. They're the better team. They're hot right now. They've won four straight. Dallas, to me, still so banged up. Again, they're fighting for McCarthy, but look, come on, let's look at two of their last three wins were Carolina and the Giants. They're not beating Tampa Bay on Sunday night. Give me the Buccaneers.
All right, a couple of other developments I just wanted to touch on with you, Troy West, while we have you. And thanks so much for kind of powering through the power
Oh
outage.
yeah.
Are you in the dark in the basement somewhere at the West End?
I am in the dark in my room, and I'm looking out at the neighborhood, and there's not a light to be seen. It's unbelievable. I mean, you may not see light till about 8 a.m. It's unreal.
All right, all right. Now we appreciate you, kind of pushing your way through all of this. But it did have a quarterback change. Now Kirk Cousins. It was interesting because people were flabbergasted by the idea that the Falcons would sign Kirk Cousins, who appeared to be a viable solution to their quarterback position concerns. And we'd seen them. We'd seen him have success in Minnesota and other places as well. Even though he was much maligned when he first came into the league, but nobody's cashed in or capitalized on the system more so than Kirk Cousins. He's a modern day version of Neil O'Donnell, who always made a big score in free agency and getting the franchise tag every year. And he goes to the bench after an horrendous stretch of games where he's thrown one touchdown pass and been picked off 9 times. We saw them post a very modest 15 points, including a safety, a god awful safety against the lowly Raiders last week. We were surprised somewhat. I think the general public was surprised that after signing Cousins as a free agent, that the Falcons went ahead and drafted Michael Penix with a high draft pick. A lot of people liked Penix and thought he was pro ready. I think, what is Penix, like 35 years old coming out of college? I think he was older than John Blutarski when he finally got out of school at Washington there. You're familiar with this guy. He's now inserted into the starting lineup. They've benched Cousins and put Penix in. How, in any way, if at all, does that impact your thinking about this ball game? The Falcons, I have them laying 10 against a Giants team that appears to be completely, never mind being on the ropes, they're a completely shot fighter at this stage, and maybe can't tell players to tank and lose deliberately, but it appears that they're in that mode where their best bet is to lose ball games and enhance their chances of getting a top draft pick and a quarterback. So, how much? I mean, how much should you equate in terms of the point spread and your evaluation of the game by the change of quarterback by the Falcons?
Well, I could be wrong, Defo, but take a look at this. I saw the line go from 10 to 8, which was shocking. The line opened up at 10
Yeah,
and dropped to 8 with the announcement of Penix. And I've said for the last few games with how bad Kirk Cousins has looked, 18 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. I mean, I just can't believe that you've got a veteran quarterback playing this bad with weapons all over the field, and he hasn't been playing very good defenses. So I had my head scratching, going, why haven't we seen Michael Penix earlier? Which made me believe, maybe he just flat out wasn't ready, or they thought Cousins would get out of this because, Atlanta almost drove themselves right out of the playoffs. They almost have. I mean,
yeah.
if they don't win out here, it's almost too little, too late. But Michael Penix could really provide a spark for this team and could really get this offense going. And we'll see if they can catch the Buccaneers, but. This guy's a heck of a quarterback. Like you said, he's a veteran. He's got a lot of leadership. So um, I'm excited to see it. I was surprised to see the line drop because I expect the Falcons to get maybe a boost on offense.
You would think, yeah. If anything, I saw that line. I just took a glance at it, and I'm looking at a line from a couple of days ago, and I thought that was the result of the idea that Penix was in there. That the betters are running to the windows to unload now on the Falcons in a very easy spot. There were so it would appear they could probably win this game with any quarterback. They could dig up Sonny Jurgensen and win this ball game. But yeah, the line I would think would have jumped higher and not lower. So that's kind of an interesting
Correct.
development to watch. And then I wanted to get your thought on this because since we last spoke here on Bury Your Bookie, Troy West, uh, Bill Belichick, of course, became the coach at North Carolina. Now he's already gotten some lineman from Faber College who's been at Holy Cross for like 6 years out of the transfer portal, and I would think that in any assessment where they're trying to figure out who has the edge in a ball game, the check mark in many categories is going to be for Bill Belichick. Certainly, if he's head to head with our guy Mario Cristobal, and they're trying to assess who has the coaching advantage, it would have to be Belichick. And then in intangibles, who is going to beat Belichick when this 72-year-old guy is banging a 24-year-old hottie? And and is actually capable, I guess, in some senses, of satisfying this woman while he's spending all of his time running around trying to find his next job. He lands at North Carolina, and you would have to think that in terms of intangibles, just based on that alone, that North Carolina is going to get the advantage when it comes to the line makers making their spreads next year. Will it impact your decision on over under possibilities of how many games the Tar Heels can win on the gridiron next year?
Yeah, I think there'll be a really good team. His son Steve Belichick's been the defensive coordinator over here at Washington this year, and he's done a phenomenal job. And we've already got guys from the Washington defense hitting the portal, and I think they may go join good old Steve and Bill at North Carolina. So I think these guys will find a way to recruit. I think Bill Belichick is a part of that deal. I think he went to that North Carolina AD and said, "How much money do we have to spend?" And I think these guys probably said, "Hey, we've got plenty of resources, plenty of money." So go out and spend it. So I think it's a good hire, and I think he'll do a good job. And I know there's a lot of people out there that think he'll be one and done. There's some people think he won't even coach a game there. I'm not one of those people. I think he'll do it 2 or 3 years there, and then potentially hand the program over to his son. But I expect good things from North Carolina here in the coming years.
You're a young man, so you probably haven't examined this particular mathematical equation, but we have a theory here, and being an older guy, you're asking yourself, what should be the youngest woman in terms of years that like a 72-year-old guy should date? And I came up with this formula, and I think it's infallible, Troy West. I don't know what you think about this, that you should take your age and divide it in half. And it's kind of like when you were doing various forms of math. And you were saying, well, where did they come up with this? But in my theory, you divide your age in half and add 7 years to it. And I think you consistently come up with what should be the Mendoza line for how young of a woman an older guy should be dating. So in this case, that Mendoza line would be 36 plus 7, 43 for Belichick. Anything under that, and you're really, testing the parameters and the guidelines of what should be considered modern American ethics. What do you think? Do you put any credibility into that theory?
Now that you said it, and I'm, I'm doing the math in my head, yeah, I think that's fair. I like that. Did you come up with that yourself?
Yes, after years and years of study and experience. I mean, this is something. It wasn't like Rene Descartes or anything, some great mathematician. We just found this over time that a 72-year-old guy that's dating a 24-year-old woman is way, way out of bounds. I mean, flags are flying all over the field here, and yet you would have to give the man credit for being able to sustain this relationship if it's not just based simply on the fact that he's Bill Belichick and he's filthy fucking rich. I don't know. I mean, I think that in and of itself speaks volumes about Belichick's ability. People are wondering how he's going to relate to younger kids. His girlfriend is probably younger than his quarterback. So I think he'll have a common bond there that may be overlooked by the general betting public next year when talking about the Tar Heels. All right, I know you don't go with fugazi things like that when you're making your selections, and that's why you're winning, Troy West. So where can people find the information that you're putting out?
Yeah, come to the Instagram. It's Troy West. The website is troywins.com. We're actually running a 7 days free special, 7 days free that gets you everything. We really want people to come see what we're about, come see the service level that we give you, and come see the winners we give you. 7 days free at the website, troywins.com. And the Instagram is It's Troy West.
Now you've extended this. Your Santa Claus-like generosity. I saw posted on social media that you've actually extended this outrageously generous offer that you're making.
We did. It's the holidays. Money's tight for a lot of people. We want to put money in people's pockets this time of year. We don't want to be taking it. So that's the difference between us and a lot of cappers. We're not interested in taking your money. We want to put money in your pocket. So we extended that through Christmas.
All right. Well, the image we have of you posted here, I don't know if you can see that, certainly doesn't do you justice. As
We
you're
we've got to find a way to change that. We got to talk to Leslie and the crew and change that. I was
least,
just thinking
least
that. I was just
a
thinking that.
static picture. Well, we hope this doesn't happen again in terms of the technical problems, because what was the likelihood that you would get a power outage twice in Seattle, Washington at this time of the year? So we appreciate you doing this and muscling through it. Thanks so much for. I mean, you're like Muhammad Ali, surviving the middle rounds in the Thrilla in Manila, just unbelievable, and hanging in there until finally Eddie Futch said to Joe Frazier, "That's enough, Joe. Forget about it. You'll live to fight another day." Thanks so much, as always, Troy, for joining us. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, Defo. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. I did want to alert you guys a little programming note here, because I know we have some horse racing fans that tune into the show. And on another platform, it's called Bleacher Brothers. I do an interview show every Tuesday where we usually have just one person, one on one for an hour. It's a lot of fun. We've had some great guests on there. And yesterday, we were talking with Pete Aiello, who is the voice of Gulfstream Park. I wanted to get into that as the championship meet is coming up and all the big outfits are here in town. And it's a glamorous period of about 4 or 5 months of just terrific, top-notch thoroughbred racing. And Pete's a good friend of another buddy of mine from way back, and I knew these guys before they really got to this level of excellence and expertise in the race calling game. Frank Miramati, who's the race caller at Santa Anita, and just a couple of years ago, and he's doing a terrific job at Saratoga. The show is called Conversations. If you're a fan of racing and you just like great stories and stories about how people got into the position they're in when there were very limited opportunities in the field, and the so-called vagabond nature, it used to be that way with disc jockeys, but certainly has always been that way with race callers that are starting out. They're usually in the bush league somewhere, and there's no guarantee you're ever going to get out of the bushes. These two guys did. They're both terrific guys. I think if you have any interest at all in either great announcers and how they approach their business and or thoroughbred racing, you will absolutely love this week's edition. It's posted on Bleacher Brothers now. of conversations with Jeff DeForrest. So check that out. I think you'll find it hysterical. The last half hour, we were joined by Frank, and the sparks were flying. It was absolutely great. So some of the funniest stories I've ever had the pleasure to be a part of hosting shows for the many years that I've been doing it. All right, people, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll do it again tomorrow. Mike Jones will join us, hopefully under more comfortable circumstances. And from a visual standpoint, maybe a little bit of a technical improvement over what could have easily been a washout on both ends today. So we'll look forward to seeing you then on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.